for the most part, were the opening sequence. I mean, other than a couple sporadic ones, you know, later in the film, most of it was the whole opening sequence. The escape pod sequence and the splashdown was almost all paintings, at least for the, you know, the environments. This is actually one of the designs, one of the miniatures built by the production design department, right? Just as for set design and whatnot.
And then
but
we ended up to use it, could use it for reference and lighting and.
But there were these big gantries that were lining the beach, and there were several designs that we ended up using. The one for this painting was actually one of the other designs that was well, it looked similar to this, really. You know, these big dual towers. It was interesting because we had these things built. I remember the discussion about, because they said this is exactly what they wanted them to look like, and I thought, you know what, if we do this full size, it's going to look always like a miniature because these had no detail on them. So there was the big question of, can we add more detail? And some people said, no, you got to stick to this exactly because the production designers the sets look like this. But then we realized that the only time you actually saw these on film, you saw one leg, I think about from there down, and that was it. You never actually saw, even though they built one of these, didn't they?
They have a few.
They built a few almost full size. I think they were scaled down a little bit, but they were big. But they never showed them, at least on the version, the theatrical version. You never got to see them. So we just said, okay, we're going to play around, and we just added tons of little details and more cranes and more little bits of junk.
Those Nernies again.
The Nernies.
Did you tell how you did the sun?
Oh, the sun. The big question, how did we do the sun? Suns, I mean, really the idea that we knew instantly we weren't on Earth because we had a binary star system going on. But this sun was stationary, and this one was actually moving and setting during the shot. And again, digital compositing, you could do anything. This was before the days of digital compositing. And what we did, we actually had on the matte easel, we had it lined up so we put the painting in, we could take the painting out and put up other pieces of glass with other elements in them. And we actually made out of black paper and some sort of backlit screen, these representations of the sun with a light shining through the back. And one of them had a red cell over it, one of them had a yellow cell over it, and we just double exposed it into the shot, into the original negative of the painting. But the added trick was we had these clouds that we wanted, as the sun moved, we wanted the light to be able to dance along the clouds and actually backlight the clouds. So what we did, it's really rather involved. We took a photograph of the painting, stuck it in the camera in the roto housing, projected it back onto this big black thing with the cutouts of the sun, and we placed cotton on C-stands out in front, and several layers out in front. So we built this three-dimensional cloud setup that when you had the light from behind, it actually illuminated the clouds from behind. And we had to match the painted clouds with the real, it was just cotton. But it worked pretty well. It wasn't bad. Kind of the test of time, we've just seen that matte paintings that are too smoothly painted or too finely rendered just never look as
like illustrations.
They look like illustrations. They never look quite. Those are the ones that your aunt calls from Des Moines and says, "Yeah, great looking matte paintings." The best ones. You look at a lot of these old Albert Whitlock paintings. They could almost borderline on messy, but put them in front of a camera and they're perfect. My friend, fantastic matte painter Rocco Joffrey, was telling me earlier that Albert Whitlock used to call it fake detail. That it's more just a bunch of brushstrokes in the place where detail would be if it was for real. And I mean, you're seeing these paintings like that on screen oftentimes, and you don't really get a chance. You certainly don't need to sit down and really look at it and decide whether, you know, the springs are painted perfectly, or it's just stuff. And you know, if you're painting a car, you know that there's two big black shapes at the bottom, of the front, and the back. They're the wheels. you don't necessarily have to really render the heck out of them. They just have to be there in the right spot with the right color and the right value. And it also comes down to how much time you are spending staring at this one point, how close it is to the focal point of the shot. If it's off to the peripheries, sometimes you specifically want to put less detail because you don't want people looking off to the edge of the shot. You want them focusing over here where the characters are.
As your eye would do.
As your eye would do.
Naturally.
Yeah, I mean, if you focus on an object, everything off to the sides really is double images and blurry, and that's what we're trying to do with the matte paintings.
And that's the downside of digital, because someone will come in and they want that way over in the corner, completely detailed.
And,
it's hard.
And the attitude that sometimes is given is that, well, if you look at a photograph, everything's in detail in the photograph. Yes, you're right, but you're not necessarily right, because there is focus, and there is compositional focus. But I remember working with photography, and old matte painter Peter Ellenshaw was telling me how he likes to work with it. He says he always keeps a photograph in one hand when he's painting, even if it's something completely different than what he's working on. He always likes to keep one handy. And he says, I keep it at arm's distance always. I never want to pull it any closer. And I said, well, what do you do if you want to actually see more of the detail? He says, still don't do it, because I don't want to see that detail. The second I pull it any closer, the camera's now going to get more detail than it would normally be able to see. And again, you're just wasting your time putting it in.
And we squint our eyes a lot. Take out the detail. So we get the darks and lights, the shapes. In the traditional matte painting days, we used a mirror. And that was about the distance away a camera would be to shoot, and we'd always check the mirror behind us. And
it's basically like getting back and seeing this piece fresh, because once you rotate it around backwards, it flips the image for a second in your mind. You're seeing it as a brand new composition. You can instantly tell what the problems are and if it's working.
Right.
I think the big difference is if we were doing it now, we would be doing them as digital matte paintings instead of traditional. But I think assuming the director wanted them to, they'd look exactly the same. We just wouldn't be painting with paint.
Downside of that is the director would sit with us and change.
Yeah, he'd be able to change
often.
stuff constantly.
Yeah.
He'd look at it and say,
come up with a new idea. And
yeah, I want to fly through the gantries this time.
Right.
I want to see the clouds move. Can I get the clouds to move? You know, where they know if it's a painting, they can't get the cloud. Though they could. I mean, there's tricks to do that as well. But with digital matte paintings, you do have a lot more leeway to really mess around with little animation bits or really push and pull. I think, and also we'd have more photographic elements dropped right in directly. One of the paintings I did was basically just a copy of a photograph they gave me of this beautiful sky that they shot out in England. And they said, we want this sky for this one shot, so I rendered the sky. Now I would just take the photograph, scan it, and be done with it in 10 minutes.